Hello, Professor Gillis. My name is Doug Heerema, and I decided that I'm going to record this in the event that I'm not able to make our scheduled 5 o'clock meeting on the 25th. So what I'm going to take you through here is the emerging business priorities for 2024. So the topics that I'd like to cover in this paper is the importance of futuring, the sample predictions for 2024 industries, a handful of industries including automotive, healthcare, telecom, and social media, and discuss briefly flexible manufacturing in 2024, and then ending in the need for a skilled workforce. So the importance of futuring. Futuring is a new word to me, certainly to the computer, because spell check kept wanting to correct it. But we now have a position at Ford called Futuring Director. It's been in position, that position's been open since 2012. So we have a person by the name of Cheryl Connolly, who's our global consumer trends and futuring expert. And back in 2012, when they announced it, I personally thought it was one of those non-value add, non-manufacturing type jobs. But over the, recently I have changed my position, especially after taking this class and realizing the importance of looking into the future. One of the things that her group does is publish an annual future look, including survey results and other things like that. You can look at that if you're interested at www.fordtrends.com if you want to pull up the 2017 latest report. It's kind of interesting. So one thing that is very obvious is that we are in a very rapidly changing environment with changes in consumer trends, obviously changes in technology, generational differences that really need to be looked at, what the different generations are doing, how they are consuming products, what's important to them is different than what's important to, for say, my generation. And then sustainability concerns. I don't think 20 or 30 years ago, sustainability was as big of a topic as it is now, but it's certainly not only a political and environmental issue, but consumers are also responding positively to companies that behave in a sustainable manner. So here's a few predictions for some 2024 industries. Autonomous vehicle development will stall in the United States. I don't want to be the only guy who's saying that autonomous vehicles are going to struggle, at least in 2024. 7 years is not a long time. The reason I say that is there's quite a few competing technologies that are impeding standard developments. So it's going to be very difficult to come up with one set uniform method of communicating between other vehicles, between sensing other vehicles. There's always been new technologies and updates. And I think we're a long way away from this utopia of everything working together. There will be, in my mind, litigation over the use of that technology between competitors. You've actually seen it now. And there's been a few technological advances that have been stayed by the courts because of copyright infringement. But more importantly, it's going to be difficult for tech companies to deliver cars and car companies to deliver technology. And fortunately, Ford is probably at the forefront of that and really making an effort to become a mobility company instead of an automotive company. But that is a significant challenge for a 115-year-old company. It's very difficult to move a ship as big as Ford. But I will give our leadership credit in recognizing the need to change and really pushing that change forward. So here's an interesting point here, that ethics concerns need to be programmed. An autonomous vehicle may be programmed to hit you. If you really step back and think about that, there will be situations, let's say you're driving across a bridge and someone's walking on the road and in your path, and your autonomous vehicle has to make a choice. Do I run over this person or do I run the car off the bridge? And that is a real potential choice. And it's going to be very difficult to get alignment around what those requirements are going to be. So it's my prediction in 2024 that those ethics concerns are going to get tied up in litigation. And as usage increases, so will the accidents. Litigation will switch from drivers to manufacturers of autonomous vehicle. And there's that saying, guns don't kill people, people kill people. I can certainly see a tagline saying that people don't kill people, cars kill people. And not trying to be gloom and doom on it, just realistic in the fact that there are many, many hurdles that still need to be tackled. And as we develop globally, we're going to need to develop regional based on different government regulations. It's not going to be the same in each region. That's going to pose a big challenge. Right now, we make the focus at 5 plants for all over the world, and it's exactly the same with a few minor differences. But autonomous vehicles, I can see that every country is going to have its own set of rules and regulations. It'll be very difficult to compete in that space. So, continuing with predictions for 2024 industries in healthcare, I would say that there's going to be an increase in robotic assisted procedures. The computational ability on modern computers will help propel research further in things like genetics and gene mapping. An increase in online health databases. Every doctor pretty much now has an online health database. However, the lack of standards will ultimately limit the usefulness of that online health system. It seems like none of them talk to any of the other ones. Every doctor I go to has his own. Even when I stay within, for example, the Providence healthcare system, they don't necessarily talk to one another. And I don't necessarily want to have every one of my specialists be in that same healthcare system. I also believe there will be an increase in remote monitoring. Smartphone-enabled home health sensors will increase, so you can check things like blood pressure, glucose level, heart rate, standard things like that. And so as a natural extension of that, virtual doctor visits will become more common. I can see very easily using a system like WebEx or Skype to communicate with your doctor, maybe take a picture of a rash or something, send it to your doctor and get some feedback for things that don't have to be done in the office per se. Having doctors telecommute just like an engineer is not unrealistic. So one of the things that I've learned from my 13-year-old is that phones are going to soon become obsolete. And interesting story, a couple weeks ago, our cable was out, and I asked my daughter to see if the phones were out also, because our phones use the cable. And she says, well, how do I do that? I said, well, you pick it up and listen for a dial tone. And she says, what's a dial tone? It's a funny story. It's the beginning of the end. My daughter has a cell phone, an iPhone 7, nothing but the best, and she uses it several hours every single day, but she makes 0 phone calls with it. And if you really step back and think about that, our children, in the younger age groups, are not using telephones to communicate. They're using instant messaging, FaceTime, Skype, Instagram. They're using many other ways, but not phones. So phones will become obsolete, not to mention phone solicitors have killed that industry. Phone numbers will begin to be phased out, replaced by Skype. I can certainly see a case for an iPhone without a phone, which is kind of like an iPod Touch, but it has to still connect to the internet. Virtually unlimited internet bandwidth. I think slow connections are a thing of the past, and that's only going to continue. So a little bit of pessimism here on Facebook that it will peak and become the next MySpace. And the reason I say that is if you look at the graph in the corner here, where the largest age group is 25 to 34. If you look to the left of it, 18 to 24-year-olds don't use it as much. It's not as prevalent. And what you'll see is there's a bit of a bubble. It's almost like the baby boomer bubble. My daughter, for example, at 13, uses every type of social media conceivable except Facebook. And I asked her why, and she says, well, Daddy, Facebook is for old people. Which, again, is funny, but they're finding other ways to communicate. So, prediction for 2024 is Facebook will have peaked and will be on the decline. Something bigger and better and newer and faster will end up taking its place. Okay, so flexible manufacturing in 2024. If you look at the graph on the right, it really shows where the relationship between the complexity of a manufacturing system, the variety, the number of pieces that a company makes, versus the volume that it has to make it. So in the upper left-hand corner, where you've got dedicated equipment, but you're only making one or two parts, that's something like, maybe the electric company, the power company, it's only making electricity. That very dedicated equipment. And conversely, if you're making a lot of different parts at a low volume, like a tool and die shop or a custom type of shop, then you're in the lower right-hand corner, with flexible manufacturing systems being somewhere in between. But in my prediction, moving forward in 2024, that the market trends are likely to continue towards customization. People want things customized. They want them the way they want them. They want their Whopper with, pickles and cheese and onions. They don't want a Big Mac where it's always the same. So I believe that flexible manufacturing systems are going to move towards that upper right-hand quadrant. There's going to be some technological advances to do that. So let's talk about life cycles quickly, that the life cycles of the high volume products will continue to decrease with more frequent product launches. So automotive, for example, was always on a 7-year product cycle where every 7 years would be a major freshening of a vehicle. That's moved to 5. Now we're into about 4. I don't know how low that can go with still high volume type of equipment, but you can obviously see a trend towards the need for more flexible manufacturing. And then lastly, additive manufacturing methods will begin to replace subtractive manufacturing methods. And just a quick highlight between the two. So the first one is subtractive or standard manufacturing, where we take some material and we take away from it. Like you're a sculptor, whatever. You're taking away material to be left with an object plus waste. Conversely, if you look at additive manufacturing, we're going to take material and add it like a 3D printer to get that same 3D object with very, very minimal waste. So I do believe that additive manufacturing or 3D printing is going to continue to replace subtractive manufacturing methods. So with all this, obviously, there's a bigger need for a skilled workforce. The skill set needed for skilled trades will become more complex. I see the skilled trades at our plant right now who can perform very basic functions very well, but those functions are going to continue to get more and more complicated. So skilled trades will basically need to become almost a degreed type of field. Where also automation engineering jobs will remain in high demand. And the rapid change of technology will require skilled workers to continue their education after entering the job market. So someone comes into the plant, they're a robot programmer, they're an electrician. that technology is changing so much, it will force them to go back to school midway through their career to learn on the new technologies as they come in faster and faster than ever before. And the last thing I wanted to point out in this is that the decline in manufacturing jobs is also partially offset by an increase in skilled workers. So as we're adding robotics to do manufacturing jobs, we're also adding skilled trades, skilled engineers to not only put the robots in and get them programmed, but maintain them and operate them for the life cycle of the product. So it's not just as if robots are going to come in and replace the workforce. It's a transition of a workforce from unskilled labor to skilled labor. So continuing education is definitely going to be important for the jobs of the future. Well, Professor, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If you have any commentary or other thoughts on it, I'd love to hear them. And on a side note, it's been a real pleasure taking the class. I've learned quite a bit, and you know, your son Ray had something to do with it, so he told me to take the course, and I'm glad that I did. He's a nice guy too. So anyway, I wish you the best. Give me a call if you have any questions. Thank you.